What is going on, Goombas? My name is Michael James. I'm a published author and self-employed writing coach, and today we're going to be talking about scenes and why your scenes might feel like they're broken or stilted or just not working. So, without any further ado, grab yourself a coffee, get yourself a cozy writing sweater, and let's get right into it. Before we get into fixing scenes, let's talk about the 5 main problems I see in scenes when I'm working with my clients. 1, there's an imbalance in the building blocks. 2, there's not a definite focus or the focus shifts in an abrupt or jarring way. 3, the scene does not have a specific starting point. Or 4, the scene does not have a specific ending point. Or 5, the scene does not have a specific situation or problem at hand.
Where am I? What's going on?
Now, if one of these 5 problems describes what your scene looks like and how you feel your scene is broken, don't worry, we're going to cover how to fix all of them.
You've come to the right place.
So you have a broken scene and you want to know how to fix it. Before we can get into how to fix a broken scene, we need to talk about what a scene really is. By definition, a scene is a specific situation in a specific setting. 1, you have your setting, so your setting doesn't typically change when you're in a scene. Sometimes it can change in the sense that you might have a scene where, maybe you have a fight scene and it's on a rooftop and they jump to another rooftop. Technically the setting has changed because they're in a different rooftop, but it's still the same characters fighting, the same situation at hand. Even though this setting involved has changed slightly, it's still the same scene, right? It's not like we went from a rooftop to now we're changing perspective and there's a car chase now. That would be a new scene. And then you have your one specific situation or a problem or some kind of conflict or something's happening in this scene. This could be, maybe it's a first kiss scene, so they're struggling to have their first kiss. It's awkward, there's tension, maybe the boy's hand's clammy, maybe the girl is wondering if he's gonna kiss her or not, maybe they bump noses and they're laughing, whatever it is, right? And one thing I think that people leave out that we shouldn't leave out is that a scene typically has a specific opening and a specific closing. In other words, the scene's opening will be heavily based off the scene before it, unless it's your first scene, your initial scene of your story. Typically, you will know from the last scene where the next scene's going to take place.
Let's go!
Or you'll have an idea of what kind of situation the next scene is going to be covering. You might be guessing in some sense, in some aspects, especially if it's a mystery, you don't know where the next setting might be, but you do know that there's some overarching plot and you do know that they're going in a certain direction.
Where? Back to the future.
And then a scene will typically have a definite ending. Either the situation at hand is solved or the situation at hand is extended to another scene. If we go back to the kissing scene, maybe the scene ends with them having their first kiss and it's great, or maybe it goes terribly wrong and the girl storms out on the boy and he's wondering if he ever has a shot with her ever again. Or you can have a scene extended, or the problem of the scene extended, by having perhaps maybe you have 2 characters in an argument, one of them just confessed that they lied to the other, and the other one says they're not going to forgive them. So the answer of the scene is definite because we know that it's ending with them not forgiving them, but the situation at hand is being extended to another scene. Maybe it's the next scene or 5 scenes down the road where they finally forgive that other character. So that's how you can kind of think of a scene. There's going to be a specific setting, there's going to be a specific situation at hand, and then there's going to be a definite opening and a definite ending to that scene. So now that we've defined what a scene is, we could talk about what the building blocks of a scene is. I don't understand why this is not talked about more on the internet. I literally searched high and low for this and I can't find people talking about it, but there are 3 main building blocks that make a scene, and I think if writers understood this, it would make writing scenes a whole lot easier. The 3 main building blocks of a scene are action, dialogue, and reflection. I know that sounds super simple and obvious, but I see writers make mistakes understanding this all the time. When I say action, I mean any physical movement that's happening in the scene. And then dialogue obviously means any type of conversation that happens in the scene. And then reflection is any type of feeling or thought that we know about in the scene, whether it's being shown or if it's first person, maybe we're really in the head of this main character and he's just thinking the whole time. So most scenes will have a mix of these 3, but every now and then you'll have a scene that focuses directly on one of these 3. Just to give a quick example of the three, an action scene might be a scene where we have a car chase. We're looking at the zigzagging cars, one of the guys is shooting at the other, we see an accident take place or whatever it may be. And then we have dialogue scenes. We have scenes where it's just people sitting around a table and discussing a subject or some type of situation that's happening in the plot. And then we have reflection scenes. Maybe your character just made a mistake and now they're just at their lowest point and they're just sitting reflecting on this mistake, thinking all hope is lost and wondering what they're going to do next. Or we might have a scene that mixes all three together. Maybe it starts with the character thinking about something they did and then someone walks in and talks to them and tries to help them, and then they get in an argument and start throwing fists. You can have scenes that have a mix of all of these, or again, you can have scenes that focus on one of these three. So we've defined what a scene is and what the main building blocks of a scene are, but how does that help us? Well, it helps us in a few ways. If you feel like your scene's not working or you're struggling to understand how to write a certain scene, then consider asking yourself questions and defining what your scene is. These are questions like, what is the setting of your scene? What is the situation or problem at hand in your scene? Where does your scene end? And where does your scene begin? Once you've answered those questions, you can then start asking yourself questions about the building blocks of the scene. You can ask yourself, what is the main building block? Is it action, dialogue, or reflection? Even if you have a mix of building blocks, there's typically one that is highlighted in the scene. If it's a mix of the three, are they all happening in combination, or is it sequentially? Are we building up to where there's a different focus on a certain building block in that scene? Answering questions like this provides a lot of context on how a scene should be written and how the scene should be conveyed to your audience.
Oh, now I get it.
So let's go over a quick example just so you can understand all of these points. So let's say we have a scene where there are two girls going for a jog. Starting out, we know we want this scene to end with an argument, but we're not sure how we want to write it yet. Here are a few ways I could go about writing that scene. I can have the focus of the building block shift sequentially, building up to highlight a certain aspect of this scene. So maybe I want to highlight how this main character is going to feel after this argument. Maybe it starts out highlighting the action, I'm showing the two girls, they're jogging at the park, and then there's some kind of dialogue that begins while they're jogging, which becomes the main focus. We can then mix in a little bit of reflection here and there and show our main character slowly becoming angry as they continue their jog and they're continuing this conversation. I can then have a highlight point where the main character just stops in their tracks. We highlight the action one final time, and then we just have her freaking out, the dialogue, the argument, she's on full blast, she's angry. I can then have the argument end with the other friend storming off, and that's where I can have the final reflection of the main character wondering, where does this leave their relationship? So that's just an example of a scene where we built up sequentially through the different building blocks. We still shifted the focus of the action, dialogue, or reflection at different points to highlight a certain moment or movement or feeling in the scene, but we shifted from starting mainly with the action and then having a chunk of dialogue and then ending with reflection. And obviously you could see that there's an obvious beginning. We had the opening scene of them starting their run at the park, and then we have a problem in the middle. We have the specific situation where the argument begins, and then we have a specific ending. Now, it doesn't have to happen this way. So maybe I want the dialogue to stay the same. I want the situation to come out in dialogue like this, but I decide I want the reflection to be in the beginning and I want the ending to really highlight the action, right? Maybe I can have our main character be there early and the friend hasn't shown up yet and she's like tying her shoes or stretching or something, and she's just really thinking about the conversation she's about to have. She's really worried about what they're going to talk about and if it's going to lead to an argument, right? So I'm already focusing on the reflection first this time. And then I can have the argument take place, and then maybe at the end of this scene we can have some sort of action. Maybe she calls her friend a name and she starts jogging off without her. She leaves her in the dust, and I end the scene like that. So there's a variety of different options and different ways you could tell a certain scene, but you can consider how you want to use these building blocks in order to convey different aspects of that scene and focus and highlight on different parts of the scene, whether it be the movement or the dialogue or the reflection. I could have ended with a specific dialogue moment. She says something that just cuts deep and I end it right there, So there's different ways you can use these building blocks to your advantage.
Knowledge
is power.
Or, like I said before, you don't have to mix and have a sequential buildup of your building blocks. You could just have one main building block that you focus on the most. So for this scene, that might be the dialogue. I might just want to focus solely on the dialogue. Maybe the jogging doesn't really matter. Maybe the reflection doesn't really matter. It's going to be conveyed in the dialogue anyway, and I don't care about those aspects. If that be the case, maybe I don't even mention jogging. Maybe I just start the scene with saying that they just had their jog, they're sitting on a park bench now, they're resting, and now I get into the dialogue. I can then focus solely on the dialogue at hand and not have to talk about the actions going on around them because they're kind of just sitting still anyway. So that is how you can fix a broken scene. If you think the scene is not conveying the right mood or vibe, then consider what building blocks you are using and where you're using them. If you use multiple, if you want to make it sequential and start with a certain building block and end with another, or maybe you want to make one the focus point, or maybe you want to highlight a point with a certain building block, whatever it is, use these to your advantage and consider how you can use them to make the scene get the right point across to your audience.
It all makes sense now.
Now, before you click off this video, I have a huge announcement I want to make. I am doing a signed copy book giveaway of my next book, You've Got the Wrong Guy. I'm super excited to share it with you guys. I want to read the summary to you real quick, and if you are interested in it, then consider checking out my Buy Me a Coffee page. So the summary is as follows. CJ's past collides with the present when he finds an ominous sticky note on his windshield. Return what you've stolen, or else. He says it's a mistake, but as new notes appear and loved ones are hurt, it's clear his blackmailer thinks otherwise. From high-speed chases to breaking and entering, CJ finds himself slipping back into old ways. To make matters worse, his actions lead friends to question his innocence. CJ must decide how far he's willing to go to prove they've got the wrong guy. So that is the summary of my next book. I'm super excited to share it with you guys. If you are interested in entering a giveaway for a signed copy, you can go over to my Buy Me a Coffee page and become a member or a supporter there. And if you become a member or supporter, you will be entered into the giveaway and you will get access to exclusive content like chapters 1 and 2 audio version, and chapters 3 and 4 will be posted very soon, along with discounts for signed copies if you don't win the giveaway. So that's all I have for you guys. I appreciate all the support. I hope you like this content. Leave a like if you like this video, and leave a comment if you have a question or have something you want me to talk about in another video. I'm also a writing coach and I do this for a living, so if you want a consultation or some alpha reading or editorial assessment or anything like that, feel free to reach out. You can find my social links below, or you can go to my website to learn more about what I provide, and you can contact me there. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.